Hello everyone to episode 3 of my YouTube channel. My name is Chris Baggs. I'm with you again here on this wonderful Sunday evening. It's already dark outside. You don't like it at all. First day after daylight saving time, we fall back, so I don't know, we get an extra hour sleep, but it comes at a hefty cost as it turned dark outside at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't know about any of you guys, but that just depresses the hell out of me, but whatever. At least it's a sign that the holidays are on the way, Thanksgiving, Christmas, which is probably my favorite time of the year, so we'll make do with it. But anyway, I had a poll out on Twitter, I believe it was Friday, Thursday, I think it was Thursday night, in fact, yeah, where I asked what followers I have, what exactly do they want me to talk about on the third episode, which I'm doing right now, and by a hefty margin, I don't want to say a landslide, it was the difference between Billboard and Mediabase in terms of the single country music charts. Now, there's a little backstory here on both before I get into it, because I'm going to talk about both Billboard and Mediabase in detail, and I just want to touch on each one individually. But first, let me just get some history out of the way with the Mediabase chart, is that back in 2006, July, like late July, early August of 2006, the Nielsen company bought Radio and Records, and they used it to help distribute the Billboard chart. And Radio and Records used to distribute what is now known as media-based data. I mean, it was still called media-based data back then, but it wasn't called the media-based chart. It was simply called the Radio and Records chart. So after Nielsen bought Radio and Records, people thought, what's going to happen to the media-based data? We're just going to all use Billboard now? No. Lon Helton, who hosts Country Countdown USA, obviously he's a media-based guy, went up and started the Country Aircheck website, which is where you find obviously all the media-based stuff now, and it's become hugely popular in Nashville and across the country. So media-based wasn't always called just, hey, you know, the media-based chart. I mean, back when I was a kid, it was called Radio and Records chart. And they always said at the end of every Country Countdown USA show, hey, you know, you can find our stuff in radiorecords.com. So just wanted to clear things up there in terms of, like, anything before the Summer John 6, like to call Radio and Records like data, because that's just who I am as a kid, but it's all the media-based data. But anyway, I know that Billboard and Mediabase, it can get a little confusing exactly what goes into both Mediabase and Billboard individually, because they're quite different in the way they determine their chart and just all the stuff that goes into both of them. First with Billboard. If you can only take one thing out of this video away in terms of what you need to remember about the Billboard Airplay country chart, it's audience. That's the only thing they use to determine chart positions every single week, is audience. That's obviously different for Mediabase, but we'll get into that in a second. And also very important to know, back in October of 2012, Billboard changed its chart methodology for its radio airplay singles. They moved it to a separate category called the Billboard Airplay chart. And the new Hot Country Songs chart, which, again, Billboard Airplay used to be basically Hot Country Songs chart. Now the Hot Country Songs chart, as of October 2012, takes into streaming and digital sales into how they determine the chart, not just radio airplay, which obviously skews so many things. I mean, that caused Florida Georgia Line's Cruise, even later when they remix it with Nelly, to spend the most consecutive weeks at #1 on Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, even though the methodology used after October 2012 was completely different. Yet Billboard never seems to mention the fact, hey, by the way, there's a giant asterisk, because this is basically in a completely different chart. It's not the same one we used for so many years, but they fail to say that, probably because Big Machine doesn't want them to say that. Hey, look, we got Cruise, who's been at the top of the chart for whatever it is, 20-something weeks. But again, it's a different chart. So Hot Country Sounds chart, I personally ignore it. I don't pay any attention to the Hot Country Sounds chart. A lot of people on Pulse, which I'm a part of, they don't pay any attention to it either. I'm sure other people on Twitter are the same way, because I think it's a joke. I look at radio airplay. I think radio airplay is still the #1 way we look at what's most popular, because it's such a it's such a widely used aspect to get music out there, and just media in general. Radio and television are still 1 and 2, I think. I mean, the internet is coming, but I know I have friends that don't even use iTunes, And I even have some friends that don't use Spotify at all or that much. So I understand the logic with them coming up with the Hot Country Songs chart, but personally, everyone I talk that are Billboard people, which are usually most people, especially on Pulse, they look at Country Airplay. And that's the chart I'm going to be talking about, the Billboard Country Airplay chart. Now again, it's all audience-based, that's all they use, just audience, which is why a lot of people like it. And they have a top 60 in terms of 1 through 60, the chart positions. That's the Billboard Airplay chart, 1 through 60. If a song does not crack the top 60, it's officially listed as did not chart. It still is ranked by Billboard every single week, but we just aren't privy to that information though. I'd like it to be. That's going to be another thing I get into in a few seconds here, or in a few minutes here, in terms of the accessibility with the Billboard chart. But again, 1 through 60 they rank it, and it's all audience based. Now, when it comes to recurrence, let's look at my notes here. Recurrency. If a song loses a bullet, obviously it decreases in audience at a certain threshold. And if it loses its audience for 3 straight weeks, it's yanked from the chart. Now, if a song is over 20 weeks old and loses a lot of audience, it can be, sometimes Billboard keeps it on the chart for a grace week. Now, there's been some debate the past few years. I've seen instances where we're puzzled why a song is granted a grace week, even though it lost a good chunk of audience and it's an older song. But sometimes Billboard makes judgment calls, I think, when it comes to that kind of stuff. Maybe it's the fact that maybe the label promotion teams for these artists' songs say, hey, we're still promoting it, just hang in there, we're going to try to get the bullet back here. But you know, like usually a grace week happens sometimes. It doesn't happen too often, but it does happen. But when a song loses a good chunk of audience and it's over 20 weeks old, it just gets pulled right away. And if it goes three bulletless weeks or less, or more, I should say, then it gets yanked. And there's a new inactive position. Again, I'm just looking at my notes here. I got a whole page of this stuff. The new inactive section is basically any song that's increasing in airplay that is right below the top 60. So, you know, I know that the old radio and records chart had a new inactive, which is basically the same exact thing, only the radio and records chart, like the Mediabase is now, is top 50, where the new inactive was basically any song kind of increasing in airplay, you know, right below the top 50, that was the new inactive. Billboard's the same thing, but it's just the top 60, right below the top 60. So you got that. And, oh, I want to get into the ad system for Billboard. That is a big holdup for a lot of people, because it's confusing. Because the Billboard ad system is totally different than the Mediabase ad system. On Mediabase, if a station just says, hey, we're going to add this song, and they say, hey, we're adding it, then it's an ad. They could play it 4 times next week. It doesn't matter. It's an ad. Billboard is different. It's an automatic ad system. And what that means is that the first chart tracking week, it's recorded 7 or more spins for a station. That's an ad on the Billboard panel. So again, Mediabase has a lot of, you regularly see a lot more ads on the Mediabase chart week to week than Billboard, because the Billboard is an automatic ad system, 7 or more spins. And I also want to get into recurrency real quick for the top 10. If a song falls below the top 10 on Billboard in terms of audience or spins, and it's, you know, falling, obviously, it doesn't have a bullet, then it gets yanked from the chart. It has to be audience or spins. Sometimes a song goes below spins, yet it was still ranked in the top 10 in audience, and people are puzzled. Why is it gone from the chart? It's because spins too. I don't know why exactly they do it like that, because it's audience for everything else, but for some reason, this new thing is where, like, they got to yank a song from the top 10 that is bulletless if it falls below top 10 in audience or spins. I don't know. I would like to talk to I would love to talk to some people at Billboard, because that's what I want to get to next, is accessibility. You can find information online for Billboard a lot easier than Mediabase in terms of peaks. Like, you can just go on Wikipedia and just any song that was released as a single by a country radio artist, you can just pop it up and it's right there. Either this little dash, which basically means it didn't chart, or there's a number there. You know, 1 through 60, you're going to find it usually. But they don't have any kind of, like, email system that is more accessible. All they basically do is that they have the top headlines and they have the published PDF. every single week. Usually, again, on Monday nights, which is when Country Aircheck does it too. But other than that, they're MIA as far as I'm concerned. They're not as accessible. They don't like keep up to date with a lot of stuff. I know a lot of people follow Billboard over Mediabase, and it's completely understandable because Billboard is a lot harder to manipulate than the Mediabase chart. It's audience-based. So when it comes to manipulating, labels try to rack up spins, especially overnight spins, because radio stations are more willing to give those up for pushes. And it doesn't have to be number one pushes. It could be top 5 pushes, top 10, just whatever. Usually number 1 and top 10 are the two are the two biggies. But if it's all audience based, it's harder to manipulate, especially when you're going for overnight spins. That's not going to contribute a lot of audience. But what it does help contribute is points, and that's what I'm going to get into next, is the media-based chart. Media-based is different in Billboard as it's a point-based chart, whereas Billboard uses only audience to determine their chart, to determine their song rankings every single week. Media-based uses a point system, and what goes into the point system is this long mathematical formula that contributes spins, audience, market size, daytime overnight spins, to determine a point system every single week. And the point system is a lot easier to manipulate if you're a label trying to push a song, because you are calling up radio stations saying, hey, we're doing a push. You send out maybe a Country Aircheck email. Again, Country Aircheck, they send out a daily email every single weekday, Monday through Friday. And you see ads in there, you see news articles, you see like daily happenings in the country music family and the industry, and it's cool. I think radio stations like that. They like the accessibility of their chart. And labels call up and they say, hey, we're doing a push this week. You saw our ad. Let's get some overnight spins. Can you just, throw us some spins? And they do. And if more and more stations do that, then obviously it's a lot easier to do your final push. And it's a lot easier to get to the top 10 on Mediabase or number 1 than it is Billboard, because it's a points-based system, and spins mean so much more on Mediabase than it does Billboard, which is just audience-based, obviously. I also want to get into who owns Mediabase. Mediabase is actually owned by iHeartMedia, which sounds crazy when you think about it. Like, a conglomerate like iHeartMedia owns Mediabase. So it's easier for labels to work the Mediabase chart because they're in conjunction with radio. It's kind of like one, I don't want to say it's collusion, because it's not really collusion. I mean, I guess you could say that, but they're all intertwined, where you can see a pattern of why it's so easy for radio stations to fall victim to allowing labels to basically toy them with saying, hey, get our song as many spins as possible, because we're doing this push. That's why you see so many media-based number ones. Oh, media-based only number ones. I remember back 10 years ago, I'd say probably early to mid-2000s, we didn't have too much of a problem. We really didn't. You saw a lot of songs spent 4, 5, 6 weeks in number 1. I mean, we saw songs like As Good As I Once. 2005. Let's just take 2005 for example. Toby Keith's As Good As I Once Was spent 5 weeks number 1. We saw Fast Cars and Freedom by Rascal Flatts spent 4 weeks number 1. Making Memories of Us by Keith Urban spent 4 weeks number 1. We saw Better Life by Keith Urban spent 5 weeks number 1. This is all just in 1 year, by the way. Just 1 year, 2005. I mean, I rattled off, 20-something weeks already just from a couple songs? You would never see that nowadays. No way. Every song usually spends 1 week in number 1. Maybe it might get 2. And then once every 2 years, you'll get like a 3 or 4 week number 1. That is like the most. And usually it's always on Billboard. I cannot remember the last time there was a 3-week number 1 on Mediabase. It has been so freaking long. And, when I was a kid, I grew up with the Radio and Records Mediabase chart because WRK used to have Country Countdown USA in the mornings here on Sundays, and I would always listen to it. That's how I fell in love with charts, and in part how I fell in love with country music, hearing all the songs. I thought it was cool seeing the top 30, because obviously Country Countdown USA does the top 30. I thought it was really cool to hear the top 30 songs every week. It was really cool when I hear songs I didn't hear on YRK, and I'd be like, hey, how come you guys aren't playing this? And that kind of was a launch pad to me getting into this stuff, you could say. But since I brought up country countdowns, obviously the three big ones we all know is Country Countdown USA with Lon Helton, CT Top 40 with Bob Kingsley, and then you have ACC, American Country Countdown with Kix Brooks. Now, all three of them use the Mediabase chart. CT40 is independently owned. It's Bob Kingsley's company. Country Countdown USA is obviously Lon Helton's thing, Country Air Check. Lon Helton is Country Air Check, and Country Air Check is Lon Helton. He's a Mediabase guy. I mean, that's his baby. American Country Countdown is, I believe, owned by Cumulus, and they used to be Billboard based, where they would use the Billboard chart. But as of I think 2010 or 2009, I think it was 2010, they changed it to reflect the Mediabase songs. So no major chart uses the Billboard Airplay chart for their countdowns. It's all Mediabase, and it's more accessible, and it helps songs out more when it's spin based. So I'm sure these countdown shows have gotten talks from labels and artists saying, hey, or radio stations too, saying, hey, basically from everybody saying use the Mediabase chart because it helps everyone out more than the Billboard does. So it's frustrating for anybody that's a Billboard fan, and I hear you guys, but Nashville's kind of built their own little family right now with the Mediabase chart, and that's just what's working for them. It sucks because it's harder to manipulate Billboard, much easier to manipulate the Mediabase chart because it's all spin based. And next time you see a push for top 10 or number 1, look at the spins gained every single week on Corb's daily radio website. You'll see spins, you'll see a song just rocking in spins every single day. And notice, like, the audience gains, because the audience gains won't be as big maybe as you think. That's because a lot of the spins are overnight spins. Again, it's something that takes probably a few years to wrap your mind around and to get used to seeing and getting a feel for it. Say it's like riding a bike, or like driving a car. If you've been doing it for like 5 or 10 years, you get used to it, and it's like second nature. It's like second nature to me, just because I'm just insane that I follow this stuff in my spare time. And after seeing these ridiculous chart pushes and these every single week a new number 1, just a merry-go-round, a new number 1 songs, a part of me is like, why do we even do this anymore? Why do we even follow charts in general? I mean, even the Billboard chart, you've seen more number 1s now. Just because the way the chart and labels and radio are all conversing together, where it's like these songs are just destined. It's almost pre-arranged that they're going to have long chart runs. And when songs have long chart runs, and stations very gradually convert them, then that slows everyone else down. And that's the reason you see 30, 40, 50-week chart runs. That's the reason you only see 1 week number 1 songs. Because by the time a song gets to number 1, radio wants to let go of it. A station does not want to keep a song in heavy rotation for a very long time. So I think the days of 4, 5, 6-week number 1 songs are gone. They're never happening again. Unless some drastic changes happen, and I just don't see it. I mean, I just don't see it, unfortunately. Basically, that's about it with the Mediabase and the Country Air and the Billboard chart. Again, there's a lot of differences. You guys can pick which one you want to follow. I'm sure most people will follow the Billboard one. That's fine. Country Air Check, obviously, it's a lot more accessible, as I said, countryaircheck.com. You can get the email. All you gotta do is go to countryaircheck.com and just sign up for the email, and you get the email every day. You get cool stuff like news on new singles and ads, and some of the ads are really cheesy. These labels just basically grasping at straws, trying to get anything to get their song played more. But I've seen it so many times to get used to it. But anyway, I might touch into the stuff later. I mean, there's stuff I didn't get to, but I want to keep this at 20 minutes, this video. So I could go on for an hour about this stuff, to be quite honest with you. I mean, maybe I'll make a second part to the Mediabase and Billboard chart, but just wanted to get some major stuff out of the way in terms of both of them. So, and obviously people wanted me to talk about them because that won my poll, even though there was only like 36 votes or something. But I speak to you people. So you wanted to hear about Mediabase and Billboard and the differences, and having me talk about all the differences. There you go. I just gave it to you for 20 solid minutes. Anyway, I'll probably be back next week with a video. with a new topic. Maybe I'll do a second one of these if you people want to hear me talk about this more and get even more in detail. I'll be happy to do it for you. So until next time, thanks guys for listening. You can find me at Fiddle Saber. Obviously, Christopher Bags is my real name. You can find me at like Facebook. Facebook I don't do anything with. I don't know. It's just boring to me. Really, the only people on Facebook I converse with are my close friends in real life and my family members. But if you want to hit me up on Facebook, you can, Chris Bags. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.